Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant podcast. My name is Jim, and today we are going to talk about top 50 players in the 2025 NFL Draft, and we are going to use the Tennessee Titans as an example on this brief podcast. So, Mrs. R Relevant is sponsored by NFLDraftFanatics.com, and this is an interactive mock draft simulator which allows individual fans to implement their own player boards. So every team on this simulator has their own player board, and we will demonstrate all of that during this episode. So what we will do is we will pick the Tennessee Titans, and we will do a second round challenge. So a second round Fanatic challenge, we hit enter draft, is 10 unique two-round drafts. You're going to see me do 10 two-round drafts back to back to back, and we can't pick the same player in the second round for any of them. Okay. So my opinion is that the Titans need wide receiver. They may need linebacker. And we'll talk about corner, and we'll definitely talk about offensive line. So I have several draft boards in front of me. I want to give a shout out to Dean Kindig, shout out to 33rd Team, shout out to Broshmo. I have pieces of all of their boards in front of me as to which players are rated where. For this discussion, I am going to assume that the Titans keep Will Levis one more year. So I am going to avoid picking a quarterback for the Titans. So at the 7th overall pick in the draft, we do see some really good wide receivers there. So let's give a shout out to Luther Burden. Observe he's 26th on the draft board right now. And early round 2 is a sweet spot for offensive linemen. So we're going to start our discussion there. And the first lineman, so I see Ariante Ursary from Minnesota. He's currently 84th on the draft board. I'm going to go ahead and pick him. Okay, so we just did 1 two-round draft. I'm going to be repeating that process 9 more times. So other players, so notice last time I picked Burden, he went all the way to 9th. This time I'm going to pick McMillan. Okay, he's currently 10th. Okay, and in round 2, we're going to pick a different offensive lineman. It won't let me pick Ursary, and the reason it won't let me pick him is if you look, Ursary went earlier, and that'll be the theme throughout the second round challenge. Okay, so more offensive tackles to talk about. Cam Williams from Texas. Okay, he may be a better pure tackle than Kelvin Banks. I believe Dane Brugler on a podcast mentioned that Kelvin Banks, some NFL teams are looking to kick into guard. Cam Williams may be the better pure tackle on Texas. So if we look, you can see McMillan now moved higher than Burden. Okay, so we've done the 2 wide receivers. You can also see Benjamin Morrison. Definitely a shout out to Benjamin Morrison being a first round pick. Again, I have about 4 boards that I'm looking at in front of me. Every one of them is a first round grade on Benjamin Morrison. Okay, so more offensive linemen to talk about. Tate Ratledge, the guard from Georgia. Okay, so that's definitely a top 50 player on nearly every board that I look at. Some people are even saying Ratledge in round 1. Okay, so another player to give a shout out to, this time Travis Hunter's available, so we'll definitely pick him. My goal is to try to find 10 players in round 1 that I like at the 7th overall pick. I'm not sure if the simulator is going to let me do that, but that's the goal. Okay, more players to talk about. Donovan Jackson, guard from Ohio State, as a top 50 player. He was 97th on the Titans board at the time that I picked him. Okay, more players that we should talk about for the Titans in round 1. Okay, Nick Scorton, the edge from Texas A&M, likely a first round grade. There will be debate as to whether or not Scorton is top 10. Okay, and then let's continue to look at the offensive lineman. So notice Tyler Booker is here. Okay, so Booker, some people will have going in round 1. I'm picking him in round 2 in this exercise. Okay, definitely a top 50 player. So that's a name to get used to listening to. Okay, more players to talk about. Kelvin Banks, offensive tackle from Texas. So if we take offensive tackle in round 1, what players should we talk about in round 2 for the Titans? So let's look at wide receiver. Trey Harris from Ole Miss. The boards have Harris as a round 1, or excuse me, a top 50 grade. So you see Banks there. Kenneth Grant, defensive tackle from Michigan, with a round 1 grade. I don't necessarily think that that's the best pick for the Titans, but definitely want to give a shout out to some of the players that are consistently getting round 1 grades. We can now look at offensive line again. Josh Connerly, offensive tackle from Oregon. Notice he's 190 on the board right now. And then there's another Josh. We want to talk about Josh Simmons here next. So we've already talked about Morrison. We haven't talked about Denzel Burke. So he's going to be on the fringe of whether or not he's one of the players that gets a first round grade. He's probably going to be one of the top 4 corners selected. He appears to be consensus corner 3 on the boards that I'm looking at. And then Josh Simmons, observe he's player 668 on the board right now. So when I pick him, at the end of the exercise, we'll go look at the Titans player board. And I'll explain to you part of how the draft board gets set up. Okay, so at this point, I have done 8 of the 10 2-round drafts. If Travis Hunter is there for the Titans, I think that's a really good pick for them. So I will pick Travis Hunter. I don't think that I've picked, I did pick him once before. Okay, so then let's talk about maybe a second-round cornerback. Okay, so Siobhan Ravel from Eastern Carolina. He's out with an injury right now. He was generally consensus cornerback 3 until he got hurt. So picking him up in round 2 would be a pretty good pick. And then I don't think we've done Will Campbell yet. And I'm looking to see if there's any other player I would want to start talking about in the top 7. Let's do James Pierce from Tennessee. Again, a consensus first round type player. And then if we look at corner, Jahdae Barron from Texas. And he's currently 82 on the board. So this will conclude the second round challenge. I have done 10 2-round drafts. So who are the players? Luther Burden, wide receiver from Missouri, round 1. Ariante Ursary, offensive tackle from Minnesota in round 2. Teteroa McMillan, wide receiver from Arizona in round 1. Cam Williams, offensive tackle from Texas in round 2. Benjamin Morrison, cornerback from Notre Dame in round 1. Tate Ratledge, guard from Georgia in round 2. Travis Hunter, wide receiver from Colorado in round 1. He can also play corner if you didn't already know that. Donovan Jackson, guard from Ohio State in round 2. Nick Scorton, edge from Texas A&M in round 1. Tyler Booker, offensive lineman from Alabama in round 2. Kelvin Banks, offensive tackle from Texas in round 1. Trey Harris, wide receiver from Ole Miss in round 2. Kenneth Grant, defensive lineman from Michigan in round 1. Josh Connerly, offensive tackle from Oregon in round 2. Denzel Burke, the corner from Ohio State in round 1. Josh Simmons, offensive tackle from Ohio State in round 2. Travis Hunter, wide receiver and corner from Colorado, round 1. Siobhan Ravel, corner from Eastern Carolina in round 2. James Pierce, edge, round 1. And Jahdae Barron, corner from Texas in round 2. So that concludes like the players that I picked. If we want to take a look at the player boards, if you go to the team needs section of the simulator and you find the Titans, every team on this simulator has a unique player list. So if I click that player list, this is the board for the Titans. And a couple of the players we want to take a look at. Let's look at the Joshes. Okay, so you can see Josh Simmons, 87, Josh Connerly, 86. So I believe Josh Simmons was in the 600s and Josh Connerly was like 150 or 180 at the time I picked him. Okay. And Jahdae Barron was like 80 when I picked him, and he moved up to 59. So what ends up happening on this simulator, when you pick somebody, they move up. So if you look, McMillan is 12th. Burden is 13th. Okay. So the players I pick will move up. And ultimately, if you look here, this is the order the simulator is feeding the players for the Titans. So it's generally going to pick the players it's going to pick the player by default that's highest available or BPA at the time of the pick. Okay. So that's what the algorithm does. You use a second round challenge like I did to get the players you like towards the top. Okay. So you have more control over round 1 than you do round 2. And what I mean by control is the players move up higher, I think is the right way to put it. Couple of other things about the simulator. From rounds 3 through 7, you'll only have to pick a player once or twice, and they're going to move to the top of the round 3 board or the top of the round 7 board. So the way the algorithm works, it's significantly more random in rounds 3 through 7 than it is in rounds 1 and 2. For rounds 1 and 2, there needs to be some deliberate attempt to set up your board as to the order that you would pick the players. Okay. So we used a second round challenge to do that. My name is Jim. You can find me on Twitter at NFL Draft Fanatic. No I in Fanatic. I welcome discussing, this is your player board. How do I implement it for my team? So if you're a Titans fan and you are watching this and say, Jim, you don't have the roster right. We're all set at tackle. I don't think you are. But if you convince me that you are and you want to set up a different board, you can either do the second round challenge yourself or you can join me on a podcast and we can do it together. I definitely enjoy talking about this. The way the simulator is set up is there's 32 teams and 32 player boards. The mock drafting experience at NFLDraftFanatics.com is going to be more random than any mock draft simulator you have ever seen. Okay. That's by design. And it's significantly more random round 2 through 7 and round 3 through 7 than anything that you will have seen before. And that's because no two teams are using the same players in the same order. It's the same player list, but everything is reordered based upon how fans have done mock drafts. So my name's Jim. Thank you very much for watching. Remember, every day is draft day if you have the right attitude. On behalf of NFLDraftFanatics.com, thank you very much for watching.